And we have our final speaker for this session. Annette Zwickel is also at the IGPP, and we've already had a taster for what she might be telling us about. Her presentation is entitled, "Are Phenomena That Constitute Exceptional Experiences Subclinical Symptoms of a Psychosis Continuum?"
So, good morning from me, everyone too. The content of my contribution follows on Wolfgang Fach's talk. I will present a study using the PIXI-2. We have already heard from Wolfgang that there have been some misunderstandings when using the PIXI. He has already mentioned a study in which exceptional experiences recorded with the PIXI were interpreted as psychosis-like experiences. With the present study, we aimed at two things in parallel. On the one hand, we wanted to investigate the question, are phenomena that constitute exceptional experiences subclinical symptoms of a psychosis continuum? In addition, the study should make a further contribution to the validation of the PIXI-2. I begin with a brief overview of the idea of psychosis continuum. In their work from 2001, The Continuity of Psychotic Experiences in the General Population, Jones and Van Os offer a comprehensive overview of the research on the assessment of psychotic experiences. They infer the subclinical occurrence of psychosis-like experiences that would become clinically significant with increasing frequency. Jones and Van Os discuss the potential relationship between symptom frequency and disorder level, as illustrated in Figure A, or, just a moment, Jones and Van Os discuss the potential relationship between psychosis-like or psychotic symptoms and their disorder value. Is there a linear relationship between symptom frequency and disorder level as illustrated in Figure A, or should the relationship be thought of as discontinuous? In the case of a linear relationship, one would assume that as symptoms increase, disorder levels also increase. Or are there other factors that need to be involved for symptoms to increase and reach a level of disorder? Jones and Van Os speculate that biological or social factors, for example, might be involved. In both cases, the occasional occurrence of psychosis-like experiences is thought to be a risk factor for developing a later disorder. Schizotypy, for example, is thought to be a psychosis tendency in the sense of a quantitative trait. This means, for example, that schizotypal traits may be present in the non-clinical domain, and as they become more pronounced, manifest themselves through various combinations of schizotypal traits, culminating in schizotypal personality disorder. If the symptoms continue to increase, schizophrenia or ultimately florid psychosis would emerge. Or, Claridge, on the other hand, postulates a full-dimensional model. Following the illustration of Jones and Oz, this could look like this. Claridge's approach takes into account the finding that even increased positive schizotypal symptoms are not necessarily dysfunctional. In the group of so-called happy schizotypes, we find subjects with higher levels of exceptional experiences, which do not represent a burden for those affected and can sometimes help them cope with other stresses. Similar findings are found in research on exceptional experiences in people with near-death experiences. However, this means that the term psychosis-like experiences loses its justification in these cases. Experiences that do not have clinical connotations, even if they occur frequently, should be distinguished in terminology from clinical vocabulary. As a putative psychosis precursor, we now look at schizotypal personality traits. We use the DSM-5 personality inventory, With its dimensional design, it is appropriate for examining pathological and non-pathological personality traits. It includes 5 domains: negative affectivity, detachment, antagonism, disinhibition, and psychoticism. They are characterized by different facets of maladaptive personality traits. The schizotypal personality traits are composed of some facets of detachment and all facets of psychoticism. Within psychoticism, unusual, strange, or eccentric behaviors, thoughts, and perceptions in 3 corresponding scales are described. In our study, we were interested in the relationship between psychoticism and exceptional experiences. And now to our survey. In 2018, we surveyed advice seekers and collected data with the PIXI-2 and on the psychoticism of the PID-5. The sample includes a total of 175 subjects. I will not present the PIXI again here. Wolfgang has just done so in detail. On psychoticism, eccentricity refers mainly to unusual or bizarre behavior that may also be expressed in speech through inappropriate statements or articulations of strange thoughts, as well as in one's appearance. Various perceptual alterations are summarized under cognitive and perceptive dysregulation, that is, experience of depersonalization, derealization, or dissociative episodes, as well as thought control or thought withdrawal. And finally, unusual ways of experiencing and thinking, such as telekinesis, telepathy, its associated beliefs or hallucinatory experiences are listed under the term unusual beliefs and inner experiences. So, some sample items. I sometimes have heard things that others couldn't hear. I have some unusual abilities, like sometimes knowing exactly what someone is thinking, or sometimes I feel controlled by thoughts that belong to someone else, or I often zone out and suddenly come to and realize that a lot of time has passed. I often say things that others find odd or strange, or I have several habits that others find eccentric or strange. Now about the data. The PIXI profiles looks like this. We see again the form described by Wolfgang, approximately equal proportions of external and internal phenomena, which on average lie between 1, which is almost never, and 1.5, which is seldom. The most pronounced are the coincidence phenomena with values above 2, that is exceeding seldom, and the least pronounced are the dissociation phenomena, which were almost never reported in this population. I have also drawn a diagram for psychoticism to illustrate this. The red line represents our counseling clients. The blue and green lines are taken from the validation study of the PID-5 by Krüger 2011. The blue line describes a sample that is representative in terms of demographic data, but not qualitatively. All persons in this sample have used psychological, therapeutic, or psychiatric help at some point. The green line describes the actual representative sample by Krüger. We see that people seeking advice, as expected, report unusual beliefs and inner experiences clearly more often than the other 2 samples. We are on average in the next strongest category between somewhat false and somewhat true, while the 2 comparison samples are between very false and somewhat false. The situation is different for the psychoticism facets eccentricity and cognitive and perceptive dysregulation. Here, the scores of all samples are much closer to each other, around the range 1, which is somewhat false. Unfortunately, I did not find a schizophrenic form disorder group in the short time of preparation. I suspect that the gap to the advice seekers would then be more pronounced in these two facets. So now we look at the factor structure of the PIXE. PIXE 2, we calculate a principal axis, analyzes oblique rotated with PROMAX. External, internal, and coincidence phenomena form their own factors with high loadings. In the present sample, the item déjà vu phenomena does not contribute sufficiently to the formation of the factor. The dissociation items do not form a factor of their own. Wolfgang already explained that dissociation phenomena are reported least frequently. We have also seen this before in the graph. Therefore, the factor only shows up with a sample size of at least 350 people. In line with theory, however, the dissociation items do not load on the coincidence factor, but only on internal and external phenomena. We can therefore speak for a good representation of the factor structure of the PIXE 2 in this sample. As expected, the factors are intercorrelated. So we look at the structure of psychoticism from the PID5 on the basis of a principal axis analysis, also rotated obliquely. With PROMAX, here too the factors map quite well. Hypnagogic and hypnopomp hallucinations do not contribute to factor formation in the sample. The perception of hidden connections loads more strongly on the factor of eccentricity than on its own factor, and dissociative experiences also load on the factor of eccentricity instead of cognitive and perceptive dysregulation. We see slightly lower loadings on factor 2 with the cognitive and perceptive dysregulation items almost across the board. The factor does not seem to be a strong one in this sample. The correlation matrix shows slightly more strongly correlated factors than in PIXE 2. So now we were interested in how the factor structures in how the factor structure is formed when we calculate a principal analysis about over the items of both instruments together. We did this, and according to the eigenvalue criterion, we would have to extract 7 factors. However, these do not have strong loadings and cannot be interpreted meaningfully in terms of content. We now look at the extraction of the factors step by step. If we explore 2 factors, we see that all PIXE items form a common factor, with the items of the facet unusual beliefs and inner experiences of psychoticism. The other 2 facets, eccentricity and cognitive and perceptive dysregulation, form the second factor. So there is something like an ExE factor and a psychoticism factor here, whereby the unusual beliefs and inner experiences are plausibly better assigned to the ExE factor in terms of content. However, they load rather weakly there. The psychoticism item heard, here I have to go. We can look at these items. The psychoticism item heard things other couldn't hear, loads just with 0.31 on the common factor, while auditory phenomena in the PIXE loads 0.72. This clearly shows that the psychoticism facet seems to measure something different with the item than classic auditory exceptional phenomena. In counseling, people tell, for example, they experience knocking noises in haunted phenomena, but these noises can be perceived by more than one person. Other couldn't hear does not apply to our clients. We see how important it is to describe the phenomena in a different way. So we're going on. We look at the 3-factor solution for the combined items. The PIXE2 factors now form two factors with dissociation and coincidence not loading together, in line with theory. Unusual beliefs and inner experiences load more together with coincidence and external phenomena. The facet cognitive and perceptive dysregulation splits. Half of the items remain with eccentricity on the psychoticism factor. The other half load together with internal and dissociative phenomena. However, most of the loadings of this facet are only moderately pronounced. We form then four factors, overall items. Now we see the three-factor solution described at the beginning for the PIXE items. The scales find their meaningful structure in this solution. The items of the facet unusual beliefs and inner experiences continue to load on external phenomena and coincidence phenomena on factors 2 and 4. Eccentricity continues to form a stable factor. The items of cognitive and perceptive dysregulation remain moderately loading, two-part double loadings included. And finally, we look at a five-factor solution. In this, the PIXE factors remain stable, as does the eccentricity factor. Unusual beliefs and inner experiences continue to load predominantly on the PIXE factors. Only three items load strongly, the others rather weakly, partly with double loadings. The cognitive and perceptive dysregulation facet begins to form its own factor, but scatters on other factors. Overall, it shows the stability of the PIXE construct, which is not bothered by the other items. The psychoticism facet, unusual beliefs and inner experiences, can be depicted in a more differentiated way by the PIXE scales. However, its items, just like those of cognitive and perceptive dysregulation, do not contribute distinctly to the formation of the factors. Now I would like to take a look at the correlation matrix between the PIXE scales and the psychoticism scales. Here it becomes particularly clear that external phenomena do not correlate with eccentricity and only slightly with cognitive and perceptive dysregulation. This contradicts a theory of a psychosis continuum, at least for this range of phenomena. External phenomena clearly show up independently of the two psychoticism facets. Somewhat stronger but still moderate are the correlation of coincidence phenomena with the two facets. The correlation is more pronounced for internal phenomena. You see them between this both. On a global scale level, exceptional experiences correlates strongly convergent with unusual beliefs and inner experiences with 0.70. The factors eccentricity and cognitive perceptive dysregulation can be discriminated from this with moderate correlations. On the one hand, we can evaluate these results as further proof of validation for the PIXE2. On the other hand, the concept of psychosis continuum is questioned. So, we have now identified different client types with cluster analysis, according to what Wolfgang talks about before. On the one hand, there's a group of low scorers with overall low scores in PIXE2 and a group of high scorers with overall high scores. In contrast, there are two groups with specific profiles. One group with predominantly external and dissociative phenomena, the other group with predominantly internal and coincidence phenomena. In our PIXE profile, one can imagine the two specific client types arranged like this. So, and now we have investigated whether the clusters differ with regard to the facets of psychoticism and have calculated a variance analysis. It shows that the client types differ with regard to the facets of psychoticism. The post hoc analysis with Sponfaroni correction reveal the following. The high and low types differ with regard to all facets of psychoticism, with higher expression of each facet in the high scorers. Let's look at the specific client ExE client types. The clients of external dissociation type do not differ from the internal coincidence type and not from the low type with regard to cognitive and perceptive dysregulation. Their scores are therefore similarly low. They differ significantly from the high type, who have significantly higher scores. This could indicate a discontinuous course in the psychosis continuum. However, the data could also argue for a disorder-free dimension in clients with specific ExE patterns. The results suggest that the higher expression in cognitive and perceptual dysregulation on people seeking advice with exceptional experiences compared to the Kruger samples are mainly due to the clientele who show up high expressions in PIXE2 across all phenomenon classes. So we can assume clinical conspicuousness could thus go hand in hand with the increased unspecific reporting of exceptional experiences across all phenomenon basic classes. And then that brings me to the summary. We are able to demonstrate a stable factor structure of the PIXE2 and confirm its construct validity. The examined correlations between the constructs PIXE and psychoticism suggests that we cannot assume a generalized stable psychosis continuum. Our data rather point to Claridge's full dimensional model, where there is a disorder-free continuum in addition to a disorder-valued one. Above all, clients with high expression on all basic class phenomena contribute to the conspicuousness in psychoticism. So what does this mean for further prospects? Further study are needed to confirm the present findings. On the one hand, studies with clinical disorder-specific populations were desirable, and on the other hand, studies with exceptional experiences without counseling concerns. That would be very great. The differentiated view on exceptional experiences in our research could be a valuable contribution on the content analytical evaluation of clinical models. And the next project in our research concerns the investigation of contextual variables that can contribute to clarifying the occurrence of specific ExE patterns. Of interest here are bonding representations of those seeking counseling. In terms of content, I can only mention this here and not go into it in more detail. So last but not least, thank you for your attention.
Again, we have a few minutes for questions. You might be able to see hands better than me.
Yes, and
I wondered about the group that you studied, that you used for this. Did you exclude the so-called happy schizotypes, or did you just take students or volunteers in general?
our sample were people with exceptional experiences at our counseling service and of the counseling service of Walter von
Right, so there could have been many happy schizotypes.
This were all people with exceptional experiences and seeking advice for it, yes.
Can we thank all our morning speakers?